Alright, today we're going to talk about rounding to the nearest half. Now, rounding to the nearest half is like rounding to a whole number, but you add in a half, right? So a half would be in between 23 and 24 would be 23 and 5 tenths. Now, since you can just add zeros here without changing the value, that's also 23 and 50th hundredths, or I'm sorry, 50 hundredths and 23 and 500 thousandths, right? Because 50 is half of 100, 500 is half of 1,000. The value of these do not change, right? So we can think of, so the nearest half will either be a number and 5 tenths, or one of these, or a whole number, right? So those are the halves that you could round to. So this would be halfway between would be 23 and 5 tenths. Now, basically, we can put these numbers up on the number line, and then see where it's closest to. But the problem with that is you're not always going to draw it exactly to scale, right? So I might do, 0.1, 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths. But the problem with that is I might start out, you know, now, since I drew these lines here, right, and then I'm like 23 and 1 tenth, 23 and 2 tenths, 23 and 3 tenths, 23 and 4 tenths. Now, really, the halfway mark, how I've drawn it, would be 23 and 25 hundredths, right? So that would technically be here. But as I've drawn it, it's clearly closer to this. So it might confuse people. It might confuse kids a bit if you don't draw it properly. And I know that I'm not the neatest drawer personally, so it might take me some time, right? To I might mess it up. Anyway, so I just want to give you that warning that if you're not drawing it perfectly and you're just going by where is it closer to when I put it on the number line, it might not work out because you might not draw it perfectly. So what I like to do is, really the easiest way to do this is I think about quarters, right? So let's just go halfway, and then it's 1/4, 25, 50, and then 75, right? And then $1. So really, any number that is in this range from 23.25 to 23.75, so lower than this but higher than this, will round to the half, right? Anything over here below 25 is going to round to the lower whole number, and anything above 75 is going to round to the higher whole number. So that's basically it. And remember, we can add zeros, right, to these if we're talking about thousandths because it doesn't matter. We could add a 0 if that makes it easier for some of these, but 23 and 18 hundredths is obviously lower than 23 and 25 hundredths, so that one's going to round here, right? 23 and 647 thousandths, the 64 is definitely lower. The 64 hundredths is definitely lower than 75, right? So that would be somewhere around here. So that means that since it's between these two, since it's between 25 hundredths and 75 hundredths, we are going to round it to 23 and 5/10, or 50 hundredths, or 500 thousandths, however you want to put it. So we're going to round this one here, and then 23 and 8/10. Well, 8/10 is more than 75 hundredths, or right? So 8/10 is more than 75 because we can just compare it apples to apples by putting a 0 there. 80 is more than 75, or 800 is more than 750. So that one's going to be around here. And then that means that since it's above the 75, that one rounds to 24. So that is how you round to the nearest half.